First off, welcome to Cloud Gaming X and our first official Google Stadia game review of Gylt. Consider subbing to our channel if you're looking for more gaming coverage on Stadia, as any new titles released to this platform I'm going to be personally reviewing here on this channel. But let's talk about Stadia's first exclusive title, Gylt. As you guys know, when a game launches as an exclusive only title on a new system or platform, it can help usher in a bright future for said platform. So does Gylt from Tequila Works fill that role for Google Stadia? We're going to find out in this review.
Leave me alone!
Now, the story takes place in a small mining town called Bethelwood, and the game's intro cuts to Sally looking for her cousin Emily, who's been missing for some time. As you're searching for her, you get chased down by some bullies, but you get lost and led to a strange town. At first glance, it looks like your town of Bethelwood, but everything has changed, and there is now some strange creatures roaming about. You then realize you stumbled to where your cousin Emily has been missing, and you're now trying to rescue her, but now without facing a lot of danger in this strange new world. Now, Gylt is a stealth horror puzzle adventure game that really emphasizes mystery. In Gylt, you'll be sneaking around and using stealth, as the creatures and horrors you come across are pretty difficult to take out. Sally is capable of handling herself in the most extreme circumstances, equipped with a few gadgets like her special flashlight with the ability to shine a special beam that combats the horrors if you get in those sticky situations. But in most cases, the best way to tackle the rooms you go through is in stealth. The game really emphasizes this instead of fighting these enemies head on. Sneaking around them tends to be more effective, and if you're not into this slower pace stealth style of gameplay, Gylt might not be for you. Now, due to how tough some of these enemies are to fight, maneuvering yourself by staying crouched and carefully moving around the rooms and areas is going to be key to success. This is where my first complaint of the game is though. The creatures and the monsters were not the smartest bunch, and you could be pretty close to them and the monsters wouldn't even realize you were there. The stealth gameplay was slightly dumbed down, but not 100%. They did react to your flashlight, so there was some complexity, but for the most part this was a tad too easy to get through. Now, the most effective way in this game to take down most of the enemies was actually not through the means of using that flashlight and the beam, but using the stealth flashlight backstab technique. I would definitely use this quite often just to clear some of the area, but if you weren't quick enough, the other monsters nearby would catch on. So this was always a risky proposition to do these stealth takedowns, but they were satisfying if you were able to pull it off. But as for the adventure itself, Gylt was definitely interesting for me to play. I ended up figuring out pretty soon that this game isn't actually really aimed at an older audience. Gylt straddled that line between its horror aspects but being a little bit more tame for a younger audience at the same time. The first half of the game, Sally is trying to find Emily, and while there is horrors, you're just going through the paces and it doesn't really scare you all that much. And as you're going about trying to learn more about the world and figure out what exactly has happened, the adventure definitely felt a bit dull through the first half of the game. But as you progress to the second half of the game, it really starts to pick up. The horrors you encounter start to get a lot more creepy, the puzzles start to get a lot more difficult, and the game really starts to take a very dark turn. The story itself is about Emily and how she's been bullied by her classmates and neglected by her cousin Sally, and how we sometimes realize that our lack of attention could be really affecting other people. Well, in Gylt, you're going to be guilted, and seeing those images come to life all over the place is a horrifying way to show the world. From the writings to the wall to the books that you collect to read, the game has really interesting backstory that has you doing your own investigation on what had happened and coming up with your own conclusions and ideas on why Emily just suddenly vanished. Mystery the game presents in all forms feels like something you're either going to love or hate. You're really not given a lot of information, and the game goes on and even towards the end answers very few questions. At times it did feel like there was some information or things left out, and it's possible that I just didn't find all the things I needed to get the full story, but I did enjoy exploring and looking for the books and notes to understand this world and really get into why things have happened the way they have. But as far as the horror aspects go, they were tame for a bit, but then things really get amped up, and as I mentioned, it almost felt like it towed that line for being a little too scary for the younger audience. You start to see creepy dolls walking around, you get some really good jump scares, and the environment all around and the immersion can really give you a sense of horror and dread. This is one part where Gylt, in my opinion, shines. The visuals and the sense of eeriness in some of the areas you explore are going to be very haunting. The game does a great job at painting this picture of evil and despair all around you, and you come away at times just looking at all of it and being gloom and being sad and just being scared. The environment pulls you in and almost sets you up for these jump scares or all the crazy things that end up happening. This is an aspect that I definitely enjoyed, but unfortunately the theme with this game for me was a tale of two halves. First part you're learning the game and it's a little slow, but then the second half comes and you start getting into bigger situations that need more complex handling, like the puzzles that were completely easy throughout most of the game all of a sudden get really challenging. The stealth and the possible combat scenarios got a lot more engaging as well, and you don't really see any boss fights until many hours into the game. So this was easily my complaint with Gylt. The pacing just felt a tad off, and out of nowhere you're thrust into a lot more fun and interesting scenarios. In the end, Gylt for me had a lot more positives than negatives. If you just sit back and take in this beautiful, stunning world and its visuals, the soundtrack and the music also go a long way with being immersed and being haunted in this world. You really start to truly appreciate Gylt for what it is. A fun, stealth horror puzzle game that is aimed at a younger crowd, but has enough going for it for older people to enjoy it. Unfortunately for me though, this game doesn't fill that role of a Halo or God of War type exclusive that really could have separated Stadia from other platforms. We're still going to be left waiting for that title here on Google Stadia, but the power of the cloud wasn't utilized much here in Gylt, and that to me was also a bummer. But this is still a fun and solid title, and at $30 I think this one is worth picking up. But my final score for Gylt on Google Stadia is going to be a 7 out of 10. With Gylt you're getting around 10 to 14 hours worth of gameplay for one run, so it's not a huge adventure, but the game does feature multiple endings, and I didn't get to see the other ones, but I was satisfied in the end, and I think you're getting a great title if you're thinking about picking this one up. But I can't say that it's a must-have, unfortunately. But either way, if you're interested in Gylt, feel free to grab this one, because I think it's a solid title at a solid price. But alright guys, if you haven't already, consider subbing to the channel for more Google Stadia gameplay and game reviews, as that is my specialty. All brand new titles that come out to Stadia will be reviewed here, so if you're wondering how it runs and works on Stadia, then this is going to be the place to be. Thank you guys for hitting that like button, and thank you guys again for watching. I'm Sunny from Cloud Gaming X, and like always, I hope you all have a sunny day.